Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Insert Buzzword podcast. Delighted to be joined by Andrew McGarva this evening. Andrew, it would be lovely to get a quick introduction as to who you are and what you do to kick us off, please.
Hello, I'm Andrew McGarva, as you say, and I am the head teacher, or as we call it, the rector of Morrison's Academy, independent school in Crieff. I've had a bit of a journey to get here. My trade is music, or it was music, and now it's being a rector. So, yeah, that's just a quick hello.
Amazing. And when you say music, what kind of music, what instruments do you play, please, Andrew?
I'm a violinist, babe. That's my weapon of choice. I went to RSAMD, as it was known then. It's now RCS in Glasgow, and studied violin performance, and then became a music teacher, but also do a lot of Scots fiddle. That's really my main playing, I suppose. These days, I don't get as much chance to play these days, but it's usually Scots fiddle and also a bit of conducting as well. So, yeah. And then I also sing, play the piano, saxophone, and just dabble a little bit, I suppose.
Oh, amazing. So aside from the Star Wars, we have a mutual interest in music as well, then, Andrew. It was piano, trumpet, and drums for me. Dad was flute, bassoon, piano. Sister, violin, guitar, piano. Yeah, amazing. So I guess, first question. So how do you go from RSAMD to music teacher to eventually head teacher? It's quite a journey.
It is quite a journey, and it has been. It's been quite a weavy one. Actually, when I was at school, I went to music school. I went to Douglas Academy up in Mulgai, Bearsden, and I really didn't like it. And I left after second year and just went back to my local school, Kyle Academy, and had decided I was never going to do music. And then I left school, got a job in the bank. I also had a place at Strathclyde University, study economics, so I deferred it while I worked in the bank. And about 4 weeks into the banking, the bank manager took me into his office, and I'll always remember this, Mr. Davidson. He says, "Andrew, what are you doing here?" which wasn't the best. It wasn't the best sort of thing, but he meant it in the nicest way. He just said, "You know what, Andrew, you've got a brother and sister who are graduates. I think you could do more with your life." And I sort of thought, oh, crumbs. And it was really more or less the next day. I remember getting out of bed thinking, what am I doing? This is the rest of my life. This is miserable. You know, I realised it was the wrong decision. And at that point, I realised that it wasn't going to be economics at Strathclyde either. So it was going to be music. And so I was still doing violin lessons, and I did my audition for the RSMD and got offered a place. So I ended up at the bank for just over a year. And I always say it's the best mistake I ever made. Because it gave me direction, and every time I had a bad day in music, it was still better than the best day in the bank. So I was really fortunate in that way. So then I did RSMD, did a performance degree, then did a year of peripatetic teaching, bit of violin teaching around schools, and then I practiced my piano so I could get into teacher training. And I went to St Andrews College in Bearsden and qualified as a teacher, and then I was started off in Shawlands Academy and Ayr Academy, and then after 3 months I was offered the role of acting head of music at Ayr Academy. So it's a bit of a story. I don't know if you want me to go into it or not, but it was just
please
right place, right time. This is back in the 90s, and it was when we had Strathclyde Regional Council was split at that point into all the different ones. So we have North Ayrshire, South Ayrshire, East Ayrshire. I was working in South Ayrshire, and I knew a friend who'd been teaching music for 2 or 3 years, and they had said, "Oh, I'm going to go for that job." They'd heard there was a maternity leave coming up at my school at Ayr Academy, and the head of music said, "Andrew, you know, I'm pregnant," and also her assistant was pregnant, so there's going to be a full-time teaching job here for the year. And I thought, that's brilliant. And then I thought, I'm going to apply for the head of music to get some interview experience. And I put in an application, and because the regions had changed, for a temporary post, if you were outside of South Ayrshire, you weren't allowed to apply. So there was no one in South Ayrshire who applied. And the head teacher, Mr. Moyer, wonderful man, took me into his office, says, "Andrew, I'd just like to let you know you're the only applicant for this job." I went, "Oh, right, okay." And then he said, and I've spoken to county buildings and they said you can't have it. And I said, "Oh, no, that's fine. I was just looking for interview experience." He said, "But do you know what, Andrew? I'm going to be your line manager, and we're going to appoint you as assistant head of music, but you're running the department, so go for it and enjoy." And really from that, I then got offered, I did that for a few months on the maternity. Then the head of music came back, and I got offered the role at Wellington School in Ayr as director of music there. So that was really just right place, right time, and just giving it a go. And then I was at Wellington School in Ayr for 10 years as director of music. And during that time, I also had a Ceilidh band Coila. I was a founder member from school days, doing weddings, functions, parties, all the things. And we did some great events and big events through Celtic Connections, Shetland Folk Festival. And on top of that, I was also conducting the Scottish Fiddle Orchestra. John Mason, who's musical director, he was unwell. And it was, 30th of October, 1992. I got a phone call, said, Andrew, you come to the concert tomorrow? And I said, actually, possibly not. He says, I need to come and see me. And I went up to see John, and he was in his bed, couldn't walk or anything. Something had happened. And he said, could you conduct tomorrow night? So I ended up at the Usher Hall with the Scottish Fiddle Orchestra conducting sold out Usher Hall. So these were all sort of things that were happening while I was doing my music and everything. And then I got a wee bit, so some things happened at Wellington School that changed my outlook, and my wife and I decided with our young daughter to go to Japan, or to go international teaching, and I got a job in Japan as the head of music at British School in Tokyo. So I was there for 2 years. It was a 2-year contract, and we wanted to come back. Our daughter was now 6. We wanted to be back in Scotland, so I got a job at Kilgraston School in Perthshire as director of music, and then I also got the additional role of deputy head of the prep school. And so I was at Kilgraston until 2016. And I then moved to Jersey, where I was assistant head teacher at Jersey College for Girls for 5 years. And so that covered a bit of COVID. And this is a real potted history. I hope this is okay. And then
please.
Through COVID, where basically Jersey closed, the island closed, and it's a lovely place to live. The beach, the sea, it's just brilliant. But I realised during COVID, when I didn't see my parents for 15 months, or my family or my friends in person, that maybe I wanted to be back home or closer to home. And the role of rector in Morrison Academy appeared, and I applied for it, and I was successful, which again was a strange story because we were still during COVID lockdowns. So I had to fly up. I had to leave Jersey, fly to London, fly to Glasgow, wait 2.5 hours for a rental car because it was closed, and it was just one person doing all the different places around Scotland. And then I drove up for my interview. So I had to go on the Sunday because that was the only day there were flights. The interview was on the Tuesday. So I did my interview on the Tuesday, some in person, physically distanced, and then, of course, with children online and so forth. And then I had to drive all the way down to Southampton straight after the interview to get a flight on the Wednesday. Flew back to Jersey, and I had to isolate for 10 days. And
Wow.
My head teacher in Jersey, Carl, was amazing because he let me go for this, knowing that I would actually be having to work from home in isolation for 2 weeks. And then, of course, I got back and I got offered the job. So I'm now in my 3rd year at Morrison's Academy. And there you go. That's a real potted history of how I got here.
Yeah, wow. And you know what, we end on forgetting that we were going through that COVID nonsense for so long, self-isolating. Yeah. Wow, that feels like yesterday, but also a lifetime ago. Jeez.
I know, but thank goodness it's over.
Yeah, goodness gracious. Japan. What was Japan like for 2 years, Andrew?
You know, it was amazing. If I was going to choose a city to live in, choose Tokyo. It's enormous. It's highly populated, but the people respect your space. Even when you're up like this in a train with someone, they still bizarrely respect your space. And everyone's got purpose. It's something I really noticed. Everyone has purpose and has a drive to get the job or to do this or to do that. And during the week, you've got all the salary men, and they're all wearing grey in their black suits. And then during the weekend, you'll go to all the parks in Tokyo, and they're wearing the most outrageous outfits. You've got interpreted dance under a tree. Someone with a drum kit sitting in a park, because of course he's probably in a flat that's too small, and he's just drumming away.
Right.
And it's the most vibrant city, and I really, really recommend going. And then you head outside of Tokyo, and it's beautiful countryside. You've got an hour and a half north to go skiing. You go down south to Hiroshima, Kyoto. It's just, I would really recommend.
Are you a skier yourself, Andrew?
I haven't skied properly for a wee while, but I do enjoy skiing. And
so what were the Japanese Alps like? Like, the powder looks amazing.
Really good. Yeah, I didn't get to Hokkaido, unfortunately, the North Island, where the skiing's meant to be phenomenal. But no, we were able to get some really good places. And again, see, you living in a city like Tokyo as a Scot, so you go to the Scottish Society, you go to the Highland Games, you go to the British Embassy, and just by being slightly different, you get to meet lots of people. So I ended up conducting the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra, for a big gala event for Scottish development, and then I ended up singing the Scottish national anthem at the Scotland-Japan Football International in 2009, in the big World Cup stadium with 64,000 people and the national teams, and it's just amazing. You just get to speak to people, and I was able to find some opportunities and make the most of them.
Wow, I could keep going, Tristan. So I'm conscious that you might want to ask Andrew something too.
I'm being very respectful to you, Jeremy. So I didn't want to butt in there.
Appreciate it.
You know, from what you've shared so far, there seems to be, to me anyway, a theme of kind of, I don't know, taking advantage of opportunities that have come and almost being thrown in the deep end quite a lot. Is that something that came natural to you? Is it something that you developed over time? How did that come about, especially in your younger days?
Do you know, I'm not really sure. I was always quite gallus, I suppose, and willing to give things a try. And that very much came from my big brother, my sister, my parents, my friends, and even my school. I was really lucky. Fort Hill Primary, some great teachers, Kyle Academy, some really influential people who, and it was a case of, you've just got to give it a go. And I've always felt that you can be at the right place at the right time, but you can still mess it up. But if you're in the right place at the right time, then the challenge is to make the most of it and make it work and make it happen. And I have to say that's probably been my mantra throughout my life. And if it hadn't been, I would have missed out on so many amazing opportunities. And I would even say this opportunity just now, Morrison's Academy is the first headship that I'd applied for. But I was quite clear about my educational philosophy and how I wanted to lead. And I think what was important was when I saw the role, I had to decide, was that the type of school for me that would suit me? It wasn't just a headship. It was just in an area where I was really fond of, in a school which reminded me very much of Wellington, where I was for 10 years, where I got to know everyone and really had a great time and really enjoyed my journey. So making the most of these opportunities. And I've always thought, I'll throw my hat in the ring. You never know what will happen. What's the worst that can happen? I stay where I am, and that's okay.
Interesting. What's the, maybe not the specific process, but when you apply for these positions in schools, is it a very small kind of network? What's the actual process like? I know you'd obviously have to apply formally and all these things, but do you generally know if you would be considered? Is it that close a network, or is there still a bit of distance?
No. I've applied for many jobs and not got an interview, and a lot of schools are really oversubscribed in applicants. But I would always apply. I think there was one point in my career where I was just really unhappy where I was, and I was just applying for anything. And it really taught me that if you're going to apply for a job, apply when you're happy, because you're a wee bit more level-headed about it. Whereas there was one, so I won't mention it, but there was one school I got an interview for, and I remember it was the strangest interview experience ever. And I arrived home to my wife and I said, I hope they don't offer me that job. I just don't want to work there. And that's something. It's always a two-way process. When you go for a job interview, you might think this is a job that really suits me or whatever. But if you go there and there's a niggle or there's a hunch, you've got to listen to that and think, maybe this isn't the right move, because being in the wrong place, we talk about having the right people in the bus, but imagine being in the wrong bus completely. That's quite a scary prospect. So, I mean, the process is usually you'll have an interview, and then you have an initial interview, you usually get a tour of a school, you'll meet some pupils. And I always think if you don't meet the pupils, there's something wrong. A school should be happy for candidates to meet their pupils, because they're the most important part of any school. And if you're not willing to let your candidates meet the pupils, then you're trying to hide something. And they give some great insights, even if it's just as a tour. but we'll always get feedback from pupils after they've seen a lesson or been part of a lesson, and we'll also get feedback from the pupils about the tour. How interested were the candidates in the school? How interested were they in you as a person? What sort of feelings did you get? And they'll come in for the interview, and they'll sit with my PA in her office before they come into my office, and my PA is always on it. She's a brilliant person for just sizing someone up. So that every touch point you have as an interviewee is important. And I think if you're not committed and you're not really interested, you'll slip up at some point. And you because you can't just wear a mask all the time. I would always want someone to be themselves.
Now you've been in that role for a few years. As you're building or growing, I don't know how to frame it, but developing the culture and the school. What do you look for when you hire people now? What's the most important quality that you would look for?
Well, I want to know they're a lifelong learner. That's really important. I remember working in one school where we would do our inset every, beginning of every term, and we would all tick boxes. But I'll be honest, it was when I went to Jersey I found out what lifelong learning really is. And when I did my Masters, Educational Leadership Masters, it was on teachers as learners. Because education has changed so much, and it will continue to change, with artificial intelligence. We'll always need humans, but you need to be willing to learn. You need to be a sponge. Because if you're not willing to learn, and this is for any job, actually, regardless of, not just for a teacher, I think if you're in a role where you're not willing to learn and grow, how are you going to find nourishment in that role? How are you going to make yourself better? How are you going to be able to deal with people and be able to really grow your skill set so that you're actually successful in that role? So for me, the most important thing is a lifelong learner. And then, of course, I'm always looking for people who are really interested in schools and education, and they want to give something of themselves. What sort of co-curricular interests do they have? Do they enjoy sport? Do they enjoy music? Do they enjoy outdoor activities? Because we want to make sure, for me at school, sorry I'm digressing, but for me at school, some of the most important times I had were when I did the school show, when I played in the school orchestra, when I played in the rugby team. These were the things that shaped me as a person, and I will always want that in any school that I run. Or that I lead. So I need the people that work with me to have that same passion, because that's what makes a well-rounded person. These different opportunities. If all you want to do is come and teach in a classroom, it's not quite what we're after, because we need more and we want more. Because I think, hopefully you would agree, that if all you ever do is work in life, my goodness me, you're going to be miserable. And I think COVID taught us that. You need to have your hinterlands, you need to have your passions. And it's our job as educators to really plant the seed of those passions. So, yeah, they're the two most important things for me.
Really? Love it. I've got one more.
I'm going to take that away and give Catherine notes on my wife. Catherine's a teacher.
Yeah.
She hates interviews. But that is some useful advice for her for the next one.
I mean, interviews are really hard, but I always ask, I always want to ask a little bit about the person. I think that when you're in the state system, they seem to have, you've got to ask these questions. You can't veer off these questions. You've got to give them a score. I'm sorry, you have a starter question, and you funnel, and you find out more about the person and more about their passions. And it really is, all of these touch points as well are part of the process. So it should never just be the interview. If it is, you're going to struggle to find good people.
Agreed. Perfect. Sorry, Tristan, I cut you off.
That's all right. I was just going to say, I got one more question on I guess education and I guess Morrison's in particular. So I've worked in, to give you a bit of background about me, I worked in retail customer service and management effectively, and worked in various industries, but laterally kind of more healthcare, but I'm not clinical. So I always find the dynamic of the kind of patient healthcare side, with the business commercial side, and to a certain extent the kind of the retail side, depending on what you do. I work in opticians, where you've got the three, where you're looking after people's health. There's the business side, and then there's almost just the aesthetic retail, people want to feel good element. So what is that environment like in education and in independent schools now? Because the primary focus naturally has to be on people welfare, the education side, but there is ever increasing pressures, I guess, in today's society. So what is that like as the head of an independent school?
It's a quite challenging role, and what I always have to remind people is, I don't have to remind them, but what I always do say is the most important thing is the education of the children, and the most important thing we do in a school is safeguard our children. So the welfare side of it is crucial. But then, behind all of that, you have a team of operational staff who are not in the classroom, but actually a lot of my operational team, they do get involved in a lot of activities. Some of them run co-curricular clubs, which is really brilliant. And it's really about investing in our pupils. We've got the challenges of every business over the last 2 years in particular. Well, after COVID, there was a massive challenge. And then following that, we've had the cost of living. So we're very aware of our parents who are paying for an education. They've decided to pay to send their child to our school. And what we've got to remember is we've got to try and be as efficient as we possibly can, because we've got to husband our resources to make sure that our parents are getting good value for money. But it's always a tricky one. I would say being the head, I've got a real privilege because I'm able to shape the direction, I'm able to shape the culture, I'm able to shape the interactions with our pupils. And then you have to make sure that all the adults in the room are also creating these same relationships with the pupils. So I think a proper answer for this is going to take an awful long time.
It's a podcast in itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're wanting to market the school. You're wanting to make sure that you've got the messaging right. But again, you've got to make sure you've got the messaging that's authentic, because if you're marketing yourself as something that you're not, you're going to attract the wrong families, and they're not going to be happy. And we're going to really struggle to cater for these young people, and that would be wrong. So you've got to be authentic in whatever you do. We do talk about Morrison Academy. We're very much a family school, and we know everyone, and it's true. I pride myself on getting to know every single child that's in my school and as many families as possible. And it's a really small thing, but I've got a birthday list, and I will go, and every day I'll go and find the pupils whose birthday it is and members of staff whose birthday it is, so that I know them and they know me. So that was something I did from day one. So I've got to make sure that I know everyone, because we say we do, and that's authentic, because it's the relationships that are the key. You can have schools with massive swimming pools, tennis courts, squash courts, equestrian centres, all of this. But if the people aren't doing it right, and if the relationships aren't there, then you're doing something wrong. So there's quite a lot of things wrapped up in all of that.
Yeah.
But people say, "Oh, you got to remember you're a business." Well, yes, we are, but the business of education.
Yeah.
So the front line of teaching, we need to make sure the resources are there, and that's always a challenge. But again, if teachers are learning and teachers are being learners, then that makes a massive difference, because it's very nourishing and helps move us forward as an educational institution.
Cool. I imagine as well, if you're building the kind of the culture you want, then people will reinvest in that culture with time and energy, and they will, to use a cliche, give the extra mile and all these other things. So when you're teaching co-curriculums, all that, they're wanting to give you more, and because they're getting, they've got the natural passion and desire, because that's why they're in the role. Yeah. They'll get even more out of it, and want to develop it even further.
Yeah, no, if they're enjoying their job, then the pupils will enjoy it. And I make sure I try and get to as many activities as possible. We're a busy school, lots of things after school, weekends, and I will try and go to a lot of these, not just to be seen, but actually because I really enjoy them, and I really enjoy seeing the pupils outside of their comfort zones very often, and a lot of our staff outside of their comfort zone too, because they're really growing and loving it.
Brilliant. I've heard you mentioned the birthday list. I've heard of this before because I know one of your staff members who was talking about it and how impressed or proud she was about it. So can you tell our listeners about the birthday list initiative that you started from day one?
Yeah, it's a very simple thing. I want to know that I'm able. But in my first year, it came as I want to make sure that I get to speak to every child in the school. So if they've got a birthday, then I will. And when it happened at weekends, in my first year, if it happened at a weekend, I would go and find them all on a Monday. And it was a great way to get me out of my office because you can be really stuck in your office. So my PA, I asked her, can I get everyone's birthday? So she's amazing, April. She does a fantastic job of keeping me up to date. And then on top of that, so I would just go and I would go and find pupils and just knock on the door. Now it's a little bit more organic. I won't always go out. The primary ones love it, so I'll go and find them wherever they are. The secondary ones, I'm usually wandering around at lunchtime or a break, or as they come into assembly and I'll say, "Oh, happy birthday today!" It's really good luck, hope you're on a lovely day. But then for the staff, everyone gets a card. From all of us at the school. It's not just from me, it's from all of us because we're all part of a community. So it's quite a small thing, but I think it's an important thing because everyone needs to know that they're part of our community, and I think that's really important. So yeah, that's all it is.
The fact I've heard about it means it's working, or it has the positive impact intended. So definitely.
But do you know, it's really a nice thing to do. Actually, it's one of my most enjoyable moments of my day because you'll always get a nice smile from someone. So you can be
people wished you a happy birthday, though? That's the question.
Yes. My birthday's always in the summer holidays, so it's my senior team will send me a wee message or something. So, but no, it's nice, and I think it's important. We're all people, and we all come to work, and we need to know one another. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like my son and daughter, they would be so excited if the head teacher came around to wish them a happy birthday. Can I imagine what it's like for the P1s?
The primary ones are really funny. Yeah.
Love it. Do you miss the frontline teaching, Andrew? Because I know that I come from a family of educators, and teacher chat is basically the only chat that I have to suffer through. But yeah, I know that the role is obviously very different.
Sure.
Like I said, how do you deal with that sort of missing frontline teaching?
Well, do you know, the birthday list's a great thing because the thing I've enjoyed most about teaching was my interaction with pupils. So that enables that. But I also do a little bit of teaching still. So I do an hour in the nursery every week. I do half an hour with a primary choir, and on a Friday after school, I've got a fiddle and accordion group that I work with. So these are things and it's all through music. I'm very lucky that my subject's music because it means I can do these types of things. So that gives me real nourishment. It's my, it can be really some of my most enjoyable time of a week, where you just get in and all you're doing is teaching children and working with them. So it doesn't matter what else is going on. It can be a really, it can be some challenging situations happening, but I've got to focus on teaching these children, and that's a really good mental wellness for me. And it also keeps me grounded because you can still have terrible lessons. It's very hard to get a perfect lesson. So that's how I do it. And then when it comes to school concerts and things, sometimes the head of music allows me to maybe play in the orchestra as well, which these are just really good things to do. And it's the response I get from pupils and even parents. I remember that in my first year, it was really hard to sort of, get myself out there in my first year because we were still wearing masks. We were still doing physical distancing. We were still doing so much. And it was the Easter concert where restrictions had just changed. So we were able to actually not wear face masks. We were able to have the concert with enough people in the room. But we still had lots of people catching COVID. And it was the head of me who said, "Oh, Andrew, I've lost one of my saxophone players from the jazz band. Would you be able to play with them?" I said, "Oh, okay, right, okay. I haven't played saxophone for a while. Get me an instrument and give me some music." So I had a wee practice of that. And then, "Oh, were a few down in the choir? Could you sing?" "Yeah, sure. "Oh, the string orchestra's missing a fiddler. Could you join?" "Yeah, sure." So, and then, of course, I had my fiddle group as well. So it was really funny because until that point, no one had seen me do anything. And it was the next day, it was some of the pupils and some of the parents were saying, "Oh my goodness me, you were like a jack in a box. One minute you were there, then the next minute you were there playing a saxophone, then you were singing." And it was just, I was just being me, but they didn't know who I was. And then that helped. So yeah, I do find it hard sometimes not being in the classroom, but I do try and find ways to do it.
Brilliant. What part do you play in the choir?
I was just singing a tenor. I was singing tenor.
Yep. Tenor. Okay. I'm bass, but I recently stepped back from my community choir. The commitment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, got it. And you know what? It was that mental well-being thing. But yeah, they got me in the committee, and then the hobby turned into a chore, and then the work commitments changed, and it was like, you know what? If something's going to give, unfortunately, it's going to be the choir till the next season.
Yeah. You need these are things you need to enjoy, and if they do become a chore, then these are the things that, and this is why I say that I want teachers who are able to light that spark, because it's maybe you're in a choir now because of a music teacher from years ago, and you're finding it joy, and then you're getting into all this stuff which isn't much fun. But these are things that make a difference, and they can help new people in new areas, and it's a great thing.
Whole new generation. I was the youngest member of the choir by about 2 or 3 decades, Andrew. And my pal Charlie, I'm very fond of him, and he's been texting us when I come back. I will go back after the summer, but imagine I'm sitting down, choir, ready to start singing, and I've got the committee coming asking me, "Have you done the website? You done the banners?" I'm like, this isn't why I was coming here.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll give each other a break. I guess, I was keen to ask around the sort of, I know that my wife, it's St. Ken's that she works in. It's an area of sort of like high deprivation, so I guess the demographics are a bit different. But like the behavioural issues in the classroom, do you find that a lot of the senior management time is taken up with that kind of stuff in your school, or is it less so?
It's definitely less so. I know we're very fortunate in our school that teachers are able to teach their subjects. We're not having to deal with high-level behaviour issues. Children are children. They will misbehave. They will do silly things, and that will happen. And sometimes some can really push the boat too far, and they will have to, parents will have to be brought in. They'll have to meet the rector, etc. But in general, we're very fortunate that we don't have massive behavioural issues. And the classroom is a place of learning, and a 50-minute lesson is pretty much a 50-minute lesson of learning.
Wow!
And the beauty is, as a teacher, you've got that space to be able to go off piste on a topic. You're not having to rush through the syllabus quite as much as you are when you're maybe waiting for 10 minutes to get a class settled, and then Jessie decides to pop up and tell you to F off, and someone else does this. We're very lucky in that sense, but there are a lot of pressures for the staff. It's so funny because I think teachers in the state sector look enviously at the independent sector because you've got all these lovely things and all that, and then teachers in the independent says, you've got all the you don't have to do all these extras and whatever and marking. It's not quite the same. Do you know what? Every one of us in a school has to work really hard, and we've all got different challenges, and we have to adapt to them. So it's one of these things that the state system is under-resourced, definitely. I think there's been far too much governmental tampering as well across the country, not just Scotland. I think if they could make it an independent body that's led by teachers and educators who have a long-term view instead of trying to play politics with it, I think it would make a massive difference. And I mean, we do try and partner with our local schools. So in my first year, once I was able to get out and about and we weren't all masked and not allowed in places, I visited all my local primaries. I've got a really good relationship with my fellow head John at Crieff High School. We're in contact regularly, and it's how can we work together? It's very much about collaboration, and we're trying to create events. We've got a big STEM event in May, where it was the first time we did it last year. We had over 300 children coming from schools all over Perthshire to an event there. And in September, we did the Scottish Schools Mountain Bike Championship. And again, over 300 competitors from 40-odd schools across the country, state and independent. And we actually won an award for that from Scottish Cycling, which was pretty cool. But a team of my staff pulled this together, and we'll be doing it again. So we're trying to make sure that we're finding ways to give back to the community as well, and be involved in collaborative projects. So we're always trying to make sure. For me, we've got to be part of our community, and also how can we provide opportunities for children whose parents maybe can't afford to send their child to school at night. How can we do it so that they can? So we're always trying to find ways to increase our bursary programme and give those opportunities, because they are life-changing. And there's no doubt a child at Morrison's is very privileged because of the opportunity that they have, and the enriched learning and the friendships that they make, and the love that they have for their school. It's amazing meeting former pupils who have such a big place in the heart for Morrison's Academy. And it's trying to make sure that we're using that to make our community stronger, and also to give back to our local community too.
My sister, she works in an international school in Milan, and I think it would be fair to say that my wife and my sister are equally stressed, but for different reasons.
Which school is it in Milan?
Oh, do you know what? She tells me all the time. I'm clearly not paying attention. But yeah, I don't know. She's like the PT of the young ones, so like the nursery and sort of first or second year primary school. Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, like, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know what it's like for your teachers, but the end of year gifts are always surprising, and the opportunities to go on yachts in the Riviera over the summer are I'm always very envious of her.
No, I'm not sure if those are the gifts that are coming, but no, I must admit, because when we went to Tokyo, the other place we looked at was Italy. My wife and I. It was either going to be Japan or Italy, and I've always got a soft place in my heart for Italy. So.
Yeah, likewise, I enjoy the food.
Pretty.
Speaking back again, Japan, and I will bring the Star Wars in at this point. I'm keen to be in Japan next year, but for one reason and one reason only: Star Wars Celebration 2025 is in Tokyo.
Is it? Oh, there we go.
Yes, and commitments have been made to a 7-year-old boy that we're going to try and go. So
you've made a promise,
yeah.
Promises were made when we were in London to see a celebration there last year. I'm keen. One more question around the Tokyo, like the culture shock, and I guess what was it like teaching like the kids out in Tokyo? Like, was there a big difference in the sort of the way they approach their learning? I guess there are some stereotypes around Asian families and sort of the drive towards academia.
Yeah, there was a mixture. It was a British school, so it was a very much an international community. I think about 30% of our children were Japanese, and chums, was it? 40-odd% were British, and the rest were various internationals. And I mean, there was one young lad I remember who I think is a good example of some of the, what you're talking about, the academic pressures. He came to us, but on Saturdays and Sundays, he went to a Japanese school. And in holidays, he went to his Japanese school. And he got New Year off pretty much, and that was about it. He was a great lad, but he was being driven hard by his parents for academia because he wanted to get into the best universities. He wanted to get the best of this, best of that. That was the one. I encountered one like that. But I know that there is a culture there of really, pushing through, doing extra studies, doing extra revision, working hard till midnight, 1 a.m, doing your homework. Very competitive. What I would say, the British school, it was excellent. We followed the English curriculum, And I definitely, there was a lot of young teachers who, it was really funny. I went from being one of the youngest at Wellington to one of the oldest in Tokyo in my school. And it was amazing. I was the wise old man for some of them, which was crazy at the age of, 35. But it was great because they were all learning. They were all wanting to read about the latest research and try it in the class. And I would have people walking in and out of my lesson to observe, and I would be allowed to walk in and out of theirs. I'd never encountered this before. Every door was always closed in my previous school, just because that's the way it was. So that was a real eye-opener in a positive way. So, yeah, it was very much an international community. Mm-hmm.
Tristan?
What is, this is a complete tangent, but what is your kind of perfect weekend? What would you be doing? What would it involve? Perfect weekend is just time with my wife, or time with my wife and my daughter. Family and friends. So a perfect weekend would be a Friday night, meeting up with my best friends Willie and Gavin in Glasgow for a pizza and a drink, getting the late train home, doing a wee bit of gym in the morning, early in the morning, doing a wee bit of gym, and then coming home, making a special coffee, having a cinnamon roll, and then taking the dog for a walk with my wife and my daughter, going for a nice lunch, maybe go to the cinema on the Saturday night, maybe see a Star Wars movie or something similar.
Yes, please.
Or, go to theatre. It was great. A couple of weeks ago, we went to see James Acaster, my wife, my daughter, and I. And it's just these kind of social things. I really love going and seeing comedians and going to the theatre, maybe seeing a show or an opera. And Sunday, I suppose, would be having the time to sit and read. It was funny. Every time at weekends, I would always think, I need to do something. And then COVID hit, and I realised how important it was to actually stop, and how nice it was to read a paper in the garden on a sunny day. A variety of those kind of things really would be perfect.
Sounds bliss.
Yeah. It's obviously referenced earlier that Jeremy and I both share an ability to make ourselves too busy, and then so it is undervalued to find that balance, and just I don't know if it'll be different for different people, but for me, I think for a long time it was about kind of almost proving or validating, self-validation that what I was doing was worthwhile, or my own personal value. I always need to be doing something to show that I was
you're right.
Value.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I would say it's similar. It's similar with work as well. And there's definitely this sort of thing that I'll go in, I'll work longer, and that'll prove that I'm really good. And I do remember I would be at a weekend and I would think, well, I can't do nothing. I need to do something. And as you say, it's very much proven myself. And what I have realised, my deputy David at Morrison's, on a Friday, we'll take turns going into one another's office and saying, we're now at the point of diminishing returns, it's time to go home. Because there is a point where you become less effective. And you reach a point where maybe you're going to do a task, it'll take you maybe half an hour, and you'll do it in an average way. Whereas if you're fresh on Monday, it'll take you 10 minutes and you do it to a high standard. So you do reach the point of diminishing returns. And I think that has to be for life in our own energy as well. And it's why it's really important to be able to just say, it's all right to stop and do nothing. Or it's not doing nothing, you're actually doing something. You're resting and you're recharging. Yeah. And that's something.
Amen.
In my role, I'm not as frantically busy as I was when I was a director of music. I was running from one rehearsal to a lesson, to this, to that, to a concert. But in my role, the amount that I have to deal with on a daily basis, actually the ability to just switch off and really just be present with my family is worth a lot. So, yeah.
That is poignant. You needed to hear that.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to that.
We can. Tristan, Just that you're gearing up for an all-nighter tonight. Do you not want to just leave it to tomorrow and be fresh-faced in the morning?
I think I'll after that advice, I'll probably work till maybe 11 and then stop, because there is a certain amount that you need to do. But
yeah, try and get it to 10:30.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good compromise. Good. What is there any kind of challenges or pivotal moments that you faced in your life or career that you look back on now and recognise as significant?
Yeah, I would say so. I talked about a couple of things earlier when I was in the bank. Best mistake I ever made. When I decided to apply for that job at Air Academy, thinking I wouldn't have a chance. I would say that two of my schools have left, and I felt that things had changed. So I was very much set in my first school. I was there for 10 years. I was very much set and thought, it could be a job for life. But a lot of things changed in the sort of above me in the school, and it really unsettled me, actually. And I would say that made me realise that you can sit there and wallow in it and be miserable, or you can do something about it yourself. And I would say the same thing happened before I moved to Jersey. The life wasn't taking the direction I was expecting. And instead of just letting it rule you, you can actually take control and find a new opportunity. So I've been very fortunate that I've then taken those opportunities and made the most of them. So that would be Tokyo. I made the most of that. Jersey, I certainly made the most of that. I learned a lot, made some lovely friends, got the joy of living in a phenomenal place for 5 years of my life, and great memories with my family. Pivotal moments beyond that. I suppose, I think I've already talked about Scottish Fiddle Orchestra again, just getting that opportunity. I'm sort of struggling to try and think. I've made loads of mistakes. I know that. Mm-hmm. I make mistakes all the time. I've failed plenty, and it's finding those opportunities for growth, actually, and just by maybe getting a meeting wrong or getting saying the wrong thing, and you've got to try and recover that. I do genuinely believe that everyone comes to work, or no one comes to work to do a bad job. So I always try and do my very best, and I think the best of people. So I realise I've gone off a wee bit of a tangent here, but I've been really fortunate in that things that have gone wrong I've been able to grow from. Things that have seemed bad at the time. I remember there was one point actually in Jersey, we were creating a whole international project, and I was charged with this because of my experience and worked in Japan and worked in a boarding school. And we wanted to do international programs, and we had to get a government agreement in Jersey. There's a whole immigration and everything. So we've gone through a lot of hoops. And then we were partnering with a homestay company who were coming out to Jersey, and all of a sudden it just fell apart. And I had sleepless nights. I was really worried. And actually we created something even better than this homestay company we were able to provide. From that, I mean, the person that was really working hard, who was the engine room behind it all, I was leading it, but he was the engine room. He just found so many great ways to make it even better, and we actually had control of it, and we weren't subcontracting to someone. So that was a really, really good lesson that sometimes things aren't meant to be, and you can find a different way, and it can actually be better. So yeah,
wonderful. Can I ask you a question around the moving to? So I guess you've got kids and whatnot. How did you find sort of moving from country to country or place to place, and how did it affect the kids at the time?
Yeah, so I've just got one daughter, and she's now 20. So when we moved to Japan, she was 4, and that was a really good time to move. Actually, children of that age, their life very much centers around the family, so wherever mum and dad are, you can make that work. She was 6 by the time we left, came back to Scotland, and was able to have more time with grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, etc. Jersey was the hardest move, actually. You would think Tokyo would have been the hardest move, but they were so slick. They had everything sorted. They were an international school. Every year they brought out new staff. It was really slick. Jersey was awful. It was a government school that I moved to, Jersey College for Girls, but it was a fee-paying government school. It was just a different system to anything we've got here. But it was very much a case of, here's your allowance, here's a website, go for it. And it was probably one of the most stressful things. And at one point in my move, I thought, I think I need to pull out. This is just not working, because it was just a really tough experience. There was no guidance, there was no support. So that was really hard. And the biggest worry, I suppose, was for my daughter. So she was 13. Yeah, she was 13. And that was really hard for her because she was in a school where she'd been for 7 years. She had really close friends. And we moved to an island where we knew nobody. And that was her teenage years. But we did, my wife and I, we talked about it, and we made sure that there was time for her and that we were always there for her. But a lot of children do move at that age. You know, you'll maybe move to a completely new school where you don't know many people. But I have to say, my daughter was just amazing. It was hard. I know it was hard for her. You know, we had tearful days because she was missing friends, and it was just me and my wife. But she made some great friends, and she made the most of that. And then when she finished school, we've moved back to the UK. And most of her friends are Jersey friends now, because they're the most formative friends in those teenage years. But she's at university now, and she's making good friends. And she's been able to actually have these opportunities of change, which I hope will keep her in good stead, because life is difficult and life is challenging, and she has developed so much resilience and so much ability to meet new people. I mean, she's not gregarious and outgoing. I mean, she's very much an introvert, but my goodness, she's a good friend for her friends, and she makes really good friendships. So, that was probably the biggest challenge of the move completely, and the biggest worry. And we still look back at my wife and I think, oh, crumbs, that was hard, but it's okay. I think, I think that these days we're a wee bit worried sometimes to make we want to make our child's life easier. We love them. So we want to make it easy, but actually, how are they going to cope when life throws them something out of left field that's so hard, if we haven't given them these opportunities to face a challenge and grow through it? I think we've got to make sure that sometimes it's okay for our children to fail at something and let them fail, because they need to learn how to actually cope with that, because it's not easy.
Yep. Again, this might be the episode that I'm like, darling, you need to listen to this one specifically.
These are very targeted questions, Jeremy.
No, they are. I'm getting the answers that I was hoping to get this evening, Andrew. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Listen, I would agree. Like, we don't want the kids to suffer, but at the same time, we need to be well-rounded people, and adversity builds character. So we don't want to protect them too much. I'm certainly let them try, and if he falls, he'll be okay.
We would never set them up to fail. Absolutely not.
Right.
We would set them up to succeed. But sometimes setting a child up to succeed, they need to actually realise the struggle that they've got to go through. It's something that I say at school, and the pupils get fed up with me saying this, but life starts at the end of your comfort zone. If all you're ever in is your comfort zone. If humans had only ever stayed in the comfort zone, we'd still be in a cave.
Sure would.
Pretty hungry, so yeah.
Awesome. So you're pretty well embedded where you are now, Andrew, but what do future goals and future plans look like for you?
Future goals. Well, I'm the custodian of a great organisation and a school that's central to its community. So my goal is to make sure that this school's here. It's been here for 164 years. Make sure it's there for another 164. There's a lot of challenges in all schools, but in the independent sector at the moment, there's a lot of political challenges and societal challenges where we're there to be shot at. I think you've definitely got people have an impression of what an independent school is, but actually all of us in education are just trying to make children grow and make the world a better place. That's our purpose. regardless of what sector you're in. So for me, the goals, I would like to be a little bit more involved as a trustee or a governor of a charity. I do want to give back, and a lot of what I've learned through my life and in my current role, I've got an awful lot of skills and knowledge there that I think could benefit. So for me, that's one of my key things. I'm looking to see if I can become a governor or a trustee of some charities. I'm a trustee of Creative Grief, which is a local charity, but I would like to do something maybe with a more national charity as well. So that for me would be a real growth. I'd like to go back to a bit more music if I can. I'd love to do a bit more conducting again, but again, it's the time and commitment. So I've got to be very careful because my core role is my main function is being a leader of Morrison's Academy and also being a good husband and father. So those are the most important things that I have. Do you know, I've not ruled out an international adventure again at some point, but that's quite a long time away. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge before that. Yeah.
Is there any target countries in whatever time frame in 10 years' time? Is there somewhere you'd really like to go? You mentioned Italy before. But...
Yeah, it'd probably be Italy, somewhere European. The thing I like about Italy is it's foreign, but it's still Western. Tokyo was great because it was very foreign, but you could still get a good quality education, good quality healthcare, good quality shops. So, it was really different culture, but it's great just embracing a new culture. It's just an amazing thing to be able to do. So yeah, maybe in 10 years' time, a wee 3 or 4 years leading an international school in Rome or Milan or somewhere like that. But I've got a bit of time before that though.
Nice.
We have a question we normally ask about. It's not this one, Jeremy. It's a different one. But
okay.
What advice would you give to someone starting out in your field? But I feel it's maybe more appropriate to ask you what advice you give to pupils that are leaving your care as Morrisonians and starting their journey post education or post secondary education.
My advice is to embrace opportunity. Don't run from it. It might be scary, but that's okay. I think of the things that scared me in my life, and actually, it's amazing the opportunities that I've had from them. When I was standing in the tunnel waiting to go out to sing on live television in front of 64,000 people, I was standing thinking, "Oh my goodness, what have I done? What have I done?" And I was singing through Flower of Scotland in my head. And I suddenly forgot the words to the second verse in my head. I think, oh no. So I'm quickly in there writing a few words in my hand. And basically when I was standing on the pitch about to go out, the Japanese girl sang. She was amazing. She was this big superstar from Japan. And there's wee Andrew in his kilt about to sing Flower of Scotland. But on the television, when I watched it back when I come home, you see me just before they announce my name, Andrew McGarva-san, just before they say that, you see me actually just quickly looking at my hand to remind you of the words. So I absolutely embrace every opportunity, but actually just be kind. I think I do say that every single person has a wee battle going on. And if all we can do is be kind to everyone, then the world should be better. So embrace opportunities to be kind, because I do think we all want what's best, and you've got to realise that there's always two sides to every story, and you've got to appreciate that other people can be challenged, and you're there to help them if you can, and to collaborate with others to just make things better. We've got to. The world's such a tough place just now. Actually, one piece of advice: don't watch the news too much.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's not good for your head. It really isn't.
Yeah. You got to be aware of the news, of course. But if all you do is scroll and scroll and scroll and doom scroll, yeah. So I mean, really, I think just to reiterate, embrace every opportunity, because you never know what can come from it. I've been so fortunate with the opportunities I've had, the friends I've made that I'm still in touch with from all over the world. because I haven't thought, oh, that's too scary. I've just thought, I'll give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah,
I can feel the adrenaline building. The prospect of 64,000 people. That is quite some crowd. And with that, Tristan, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, of course, Jeremy. We'll just thank you so much, Andrew. It never ceases to amaze me how quickly time goes when we're speaking to our guests, because, you know, like I said, our motivation is to find out kind of a bit about people's journey. Everyone's got an interesting story to tell, whether they realize it or not, and it's been a pleasure to hear yours. I hope we can continue to learn more, hear more, and keep in touch. And Thank you so much for giving up your time this evening.
No, thanks, Tristan. Thanks, Jamie. I've really enjoyed that. I hope I haven't waffled too much. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, we'll be back next week with another episode. Bye for now.